Going live. Pushing the button. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening for our sixth installment of the Financial Aid Atlas series. Really excited to have everybody here. We'll get started in just a couple minutes, but I'm going to give a couple moments here for everyone to join in and get ready with us, okay? Tonight, as always, it is a recorded session. These will be live probably by tomorrow. So if you want to catch up on anything that you might have missed along the way, you can recap tomorrow afternoon, I would imagine, if not the day following for sure. But just give us a couple minutes here to let everybody jump in, and we'll get started here soon. All right, looks like we have a couple of viewers already in with us. Thanks for being prompt. And so in like turn, we'll be as prompt as we can, and we'll get started here on our sixth installment of the Financial Aid Atlas series. As always, my name is Zach Sawyer. I'm an assistant director of admissions here, working primarily with our engineering students, but happily working with any student who wants to talk MMA. And I'm joined by everybody's favorite director of financial aid, Ryan French. We're back for the sixth installment where we are talking about private scholarships. Tonight's episode is called the Scholarship Search Scavenger Hunt, Finding and Applying for Private Scholarships. So this is a pretty large world out there. We will try to guide you to as many resources as we can. Really excited to have you all joining. And I'm going to let Ryan kind of take it away and start the show.
Thanks, Zach. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. This has been, so far, a lot of fun. We did this last year, went through the whole webinar series and made some changes this year around, and it's been really great talking to all of you and getting the feedback directly from you guys and be able to answer questions. It's been a lot of fun. So we're just going to jump right in. I want to start like we have been starting with an update on the FAFSA and some information there because I've got a little bit to share, and there may be questions on that. So I want to give time to let people formulate some questions on that whole update. But today we're mostly going to be talking about private scholarships, how to find them, how to apply for them, just some tips and tricks and things like that. But jumping in on that FAFSA update, there's really no change too much to where the FAFSA is at right now. It's been open since the end of December. Fits and starts here and there. There are still some issues for sure. And I'll go over a couple of those on the next slide. But I did want to mention that because the FAFSA is delayed, and we've talked about it a few times, if you are unaware, if you complete the FAFSA now, it will say that it's in review until about mid-March when all of the FAFSAs are going to start getting processed and sent out to schools. So I can't see anything. If you've submitted your FAFSA, I still have no idea what's on it. And you may have no idea what's on it, honestly, at this point. But we're going to try something out. There'll be an email coming out to newly accepted students within the next couple of days that's going to go out and invite students to complete a process that we're just calling a federal aid estimator. But we're going to look at student SAI data that comes in on the FAFSA and also comes in through one other way. So you may have, if you received an email after completing the FAFSA from the U.S. Department of Education called "We've received your FAFSA form," there may be an SAI, that's the Student Aid Index. That's the number we use to sort of figure out student aid. You may have received an SAI in that email, and that's great. If you've received that, there's going to be a process that you can complete to sort of send that information to us in a kind of clean way, so that we can then take a look at that SAI and kind of make a judgment on whether or not we can put together a aid estimate for you. If you didn't receive an SAI, which a lot of students did not, they completed the FAFSA and the email says, well, we couldn't calculate your SAI, sorry. There is something called the Federal Aid Estimator that you can complete at studentaid.gov that will give you an an estimated SAI. And so there'll be a process for completing that as well and sending us that information too. So keep an eye on your email. It should be coming from, I believe it's either coming from admissions or it's coming directly from me. I'm not exactly sure how we set it up, but keep an eye out for that. And if you don't see anything in the next day or so, reach out and I'll be happy to walk you through that process and get you lined up for that. Um, but just talking about the timeline real quick, the timeline has not changed from the last time we did an update. It's open right now. We're hoping that the FAFSA information is going to be sent to schools in mid-March, although mid-March is when they're going to start processing FAFSAs, so there could be a little bit of a delay. I would say realistically, finalized aid offers are not going to be going out to students until April at the earliest, and I would say that's probably going to be the case around the country, which is very frustrating for people. So I understand if you're frustrated, you're feeling a little antsy about it. I'm feeling antsy too. I am also frustrated, and there's a lot of people out there feeling the same way. So that's why we're going to try and do this estimated award offer beforehand, but no promises, unfortunately, on that. We're going to work on that process, see how it goes, see what kind of information that we get, see how comfortable and confident we are in the data, and then try and put some stuff out before, hopefully before April, so that people can really have a good feel and start making some plans and budgeting and planning ahead. There are still some issues with the website, with the studentaid.gov FAFSA like application. So it's possible that you may have already submitted it. You're past that part. If you have, great. Even if you have, there may still be some issues. I've talked to some students who completed the FAFSA and it didn't ask them to put in any student information or any parent information, or it skipped over some details or something that they're pretty sure they needed to fill out. So there's definitely some bugs, and a lot of that is unfortunately you're just gonna kind of have to wait until March before you can get back into it and make corrections if you need to, or take a look at it and see if anything needs to be fixed. Um, but then after that, the timeline sort of goes ahead as previously scheduled. Those finalized offers are going to go out hopefully in April. We're going to be scheduling some planning sessions for the spring. So April, May time frame is when we really want to drill down and take a look at what you've been offered, um, how much aid you've received. Is there any other aid out there we could be looking for? What's left to cover? Kind of all those budgeting conversations. So that's what we're shooting for. And then hopefully, by the time summer rolls around, we finalized everything. We can kind of like sit back, relax a little bit, maybe apply for loans if we need to cover any remaining balance. And then school starts in August. So uh, I'm confident that we'll be able to get there with everybody, and we'll be able to get this all wrapped up. It'll just be on a tighter timeline than we're used to, and I'm sure tighter timeline than any of you would like. But we'll get there, I promise. All right, so moving on. That's it for the FAFSA update. We're going to talk about private scholarships, and the first thing I wanted to talk about are just some general search tips. Um, the big one that I like to tell students and parents when I'm talking to them is when you're doing a search and you're trying to find scholarships out there, whether you are looking in your local community or you're talking to family or you are talking to your guidance counselor or you're looking online, and online happens to be one of the really I would say cost effective methods of searching these days, just because there is so much information out there. You want to cast a really wide net, but you also want to be really, really specific. And I said that to Zach earlier, and he said, well, that's a little, that doesn't really make too much sense. You can't do both things. And I think what I mean is you really want to try and find a balance between those two things, and you want to do both. So you want to go really broad. You want to search very kind of generic, very general search terms. You want to look all over the place, ask everybody that you know. I mentioned earlier, family guidance counselors, talk to any, club organization owners or leaders or HR departments or anybody that you can think of that may be tapped into some kind of scholarship program. You should be talking to them, asking, "Hey, do you know of any scholarship programs out there that I could apply for?" And when you're searching online, these can be like really generic searches like money for college, which is just going to bring up so many hits, so much information. It's probably going to be a little overwhelming to sift through, but that's where you can really start your search and start looking for some of those resources that are out there, and places to start looking. And then you want to start getting a little bit more specific. So when you get a feel for all of the stuff that's out there, then you can start getting a little more specific. And we're going to talk about some of the online search engines that are out there. Um, that's on the next slide. But as you're looking, you want to get personal. So when we talk about getting specific, look into your personal history, your interests, your background, your family background. Organizations that you've been a part of, extracurriculars that you've done, things like that. You want to get really specific with. I mean, we talk to students all the time about like, hey, do you own a dog? Let's look for dog scholarships. Let's just take whatever that word is, that specific thing that has to do with you, put the word scholarship at the end of it, and type that into Google and see what comes up. That can often, net some really interesting results. You also want to be aspirational. So you want to be looking ahead. You want to look at your goals. Like, where do you want to be? What career are you looking into? What program are you looking to go to school for? And start plugging some of that information in. If you could think of your dream job, what would that be? Plus the word scholarship. Type that into Google. See what you get. And then as you start getting more comfortable with searching that way, you want to start combining terms. And so what I mean is you want to start combining a few of those different specific or general generic things together to come up with a picture of you and what scholarships may apply directly to you. So the examples that I gave there are STEM scholarship for women in Maine. That's going to give you some really good results. If those things jive with you, then you may be able to find some really good resources out there that are really specific. And the reason that's important is because as you get more specific, the pool of applicants decreases. So when we talk like those general money for college or undergraduate scholarships out there, we're talking about scholarships that potentially anybody in the country could be applying for. Millions and millions of people are applying potentially for that one scholarship. And that means that your chances of getting that scholarship go down. As you start getting more and more specific, the number of students that qualify for that same scholarship that you've now found that is specifically for first generation college students who are interested in marine biology, play soccer, and have cats. I don't know if that scholarship exists, but it probably does. Um, when you find that scholarship, there's only so many first generational college students who are into marine bio, play soccer, and like cats. So your chances go up as you start looking for scholarships like that. So you want to try and do that balance. You want to try and find both of those things because there can be some really easy scholarship applications out there that are super general and everybody's applying for, but they take no time to complete. They may not even have an essay requirement. It might just be a quick form that you have to fill out, press a button, and press submit, and you've applied for that scholarship. And your odds are pretty low, but you can bust out a bunch of those applications. The more specific ones, you may get some easy applications there too, but you may also get some more complicated applications, and they're going to be a little bit more competitive. But again, that applicant pool is lower, so your chances go up. And so you want to try and find a balance between both of those things. And that's what I talk about. That's when I say you want to cast your net wide and narrow, that's what I mean. You want to do both of those things to really maximize your chances of finding scholarships out there. So we're going to talk about some of the tools that we use and we recommend students use. So big one are the scholarship search engines. There are a ton out there. The big ones that we mentioned, you can actually go to our website. We've got links to all of these things. I think Zach's gonna put the link in the chat as well to the section on the website that has a lot of these links there. But the big ones that we mentioned to students are Going Mary, Bold.org, and Career One Stop. Career One Stop is run through the U.S. Department of Labor, and they have a scholarship search finder. But there's a bunch of others. There's FastWeb, scholarships.com, Big Future, which is run by College Board, Unigo, Niche, Appley, Scholarship 360, Peterson's. If you've ever heard of any of those or never heard of any of them, go check them out. And what they do is they just make it easier. The whole point of these scholarship search engines, all of the ones that I've listed right now actually are free. Um, you go to that website, you can create a profile. Some of them you don't have to, but you create a profile. You put in all of your interests. You put in what you're in, like what you're going to school for, where you're from, and it's going to start populating a list of scholarships that you can apply for. With uh, the search engines like Going Merry and FastWeb, and I think Bold does it as well. It'll bring up a bunch that you may be able to apply for with one click. So, a bunch of them and maybe have a bunch of different criteria, but that you are eligible for, and don't have an essay requirement, you can just click a button. It'll fill in the applications for you and apply for 10, 20 scholarships at a time. So they make it really easy to sort of do that broad approach. They also make it really easy to start plugging in those really specific search terms and start narrowing down lists. Career One Stop is a great example. You can go there to that website right now. Um, Feel free to pause this and listen later. You can go to the Career One Stop website, and without setting up an account at all, you can just start plugging in little bits of information, marine biology or just the word engineering, Maine, um, you could try cats. I don't know. The Career One Stop does a great job with cat scholarships, but maybe they do. But you could start putting in some of those specific terms, and it will start just whittling down that list. And you might find that you put in 5 really specific search terms, and the scholarship list just goes to 0. It's possible, but start pulling little, specific terms out and putting specific terms back in, and you will see that there is some great, really specific scholarships out there that you qualify for that maybe not everybody out there is finding. So those search engines really make that easier to do because you can start really getting specific and playing around with those search terms and finding things, that you may not be able to find otherwise. I did want to give you a couple stats. One of them is less than 40% of our current students right now applied for private scholarships this year. So there's a ton of money kind of left on the table. When I talk to families about the amount of money, I think this year, the last time I looked, it's billions. I mean, it's billions and millions of dollars that is put out there in scholarships every year. That's just sitting out there waiting for people to apply for it. So many scholarship organizations that I talk to are like desperate for applicants, desperate for candidates. Some of them out there, you're going to get so many applicants that they can't even handle it. But there's definitely organizations out there that are really searching for good applicants and just need help finding them. So help them and go apply a lot and find a bunch. And right now is when you should be doing this. Um, I also wanted to give you the stat, that $4,600, that's current right now of the students who are enrolled right now at Maine Maritime Academy who went out and applied for private scholarships. The average scholarship amount that they've gotten in total for this year is $4,600. That's the average. I'm not going to name names, but the number one student this year walked in the door with $24,000 in private scholarships before I gave him anything. So that's just a really good example. And this is where it kind of the the cost of the time it takes to do all of those scholarships can be pretty high. So a lot of times when I'm talking to families, like parents, this is where you can really shine if you want to try and help out. I know there's a ton to think about, and you're thinking about the whole process. But if you're looking for a way to help, sometimes finding these scholarships, finding these applications can be really helpful. Students, if you're not like in the position to have a parent help you out with this, or a family member help you out with this, that's totally fine. That's what those search engines are for. But if you can get someone to help you out and start looking for these applications, for you to fill out, that's a really good way to get someone else sort of on your team helping out with the whole process. And honestly, the biggest success stories that I see from students who walk in with, $10,000, $20,000 in private scholarships, it's because they were really staying really consistent. They were keeping a really good calendar, paying attention to scholarships when they opened and when they closed, like when the application deadlines were. And they had a really good essay. And we're going to talk about a few of those things in a little bit, but um, it's really important to pay attention to this because there is money out there, and honestly, everybody who's watching right now, there are scholarships out there for you that you can get right now. You just have to go out and apply for them and find them. But there are definitely scholarships out there for everybody. Okay, so so we talked about the search engines. There's also, a really good benefit, and this is sort of like if you think about the scholarship search engines as like the new school. This is more the old school method, I would say, and this is like going to your local library because there are local resources out there, and oftentimes, especially nowadays, where so much is online, those local resources tend to get untapped because people don't think that they're out there, or they don't take the time to walk into the local library and see if they've got any scholarship resources available. So definitely check with your school if you're in high school right now, and you've got a good relationship with your guidance counselor, or even if you don't, go into the school office, ask if there are scholarship applications that you can fill out. Some school departments specifically manage scholarship programs out of that school department. Some of them just have resources like, hey, go check out this website or go check out this, nonprofit organization. But either way, that's a good resource. Um, Libraries sometimes tend to be really good resources. Your local town library may have some information about scholarships for undergrad students. Same with city offices, city and town and state organizations. Uh, Excuse me, I'm so sorry, tend to have really good resources as well. Um, there's also employer programs, and this is kind of twofold because as a parent or as a family member of a student who's getting ready to go to college, you may not even realize that your employer has a scholarship program that your student may be eligible for. Some of them tend to be dependent programs, so you have to be an employee, and your specific dependent child has to be attending college. Some of them are a little less strict than that, and a lot of times these tend to be underutilized because people just don't know about them. We had a student. I've probably told this story before, but we had a student not last year but the year before whose parents came in. We sat down. We were talking. We mentioned this employer program. Dad was like, "Nah, that's not going to happen. That's not a thing." And we got a call later that week that the parent had reached out to their HR department, found out that there was a scholarship program that the HR department had kind of forgotten about, and then that student got a scholarship that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise if their parent hadn't, taken that extra step and asked that question. Some of the ones that I just in a quick search today found out: CBS, Pepsi, American Airlines, Intel. There were a ton of big companies out there who do dependent programs. So if you are an employee of one of those big companies, check and see if your business, if your employer offers scholarships to undergraduate students, like you're a dependent student. There's also other types of employer programs, and that's specifically for a student who is an employee or even is considering being an employee or doing an internship or something like that. I didn't list these out, but one really good example, and I've gotten this question a couple times every cycle, so I'm just going to say it here, and hopefully I catch anybody who had the question. But Crowley Maritime is a company that does a scholarship program, and they list Maine Maritime Academy on their website, and they tell you to reach out to us for more information. Crowley Maritime, they'll give a scholarship to anybody who comes out and ships with them. And so they happen to be one of the shipping companies that we send students out when they need to get their seat time, usually in their sophomore year, there's a couple other times as well. But when they go out for their seat time and they go out for cadetshiping, they can choose to cadetship with Crowley. And the students that cadetship with Crowley, they can get a scholarship. So those are sources of scholarships that may exist. You know, if you are a current employee somewhere as an undergraduate student, like you're planning on going to college, but you work somewhere right now, there may be a program available. A lot of those programs tend to require you to stay employed. So I don't know how feasible it would be one way or the other, but like it does not hurt to ask. So check if you've got an employer, check and see if there's a program available to you. Also, really important are affiliations. And this is a ton of different types of affiliations exist out there, but like I'm talking, you know, cultural centers, religious organizations, heritage or community foundations, but this is also like community groups and clubs, which I didn't mention on that first box there. Um, but one of the ones that, you know, popped up in a search recently was ACEs, which is Advancing Indigenous People in STEM. So there you go. That's, you know, Native Americans or other indigenous peoples who can, you know, provide documentation of their heritage, and then also are interested in STEM, which is basically all of the programs we have here at Maine Maritime Academy. You have, you know, an organization that's right out there just for you with scholarships available. And I mentioned the ACES Chevron because they happen to be a shipping company, a oil rig shipping company, and they do a tuition assistance program through them. NAACP, that's a great resource. They have scholarships available. ISNA is the Islamic Society of North America. They have scholarships available. So start tapping into some of those things. If you've got some cultural heritage, if you've got you know, a religious affiliation that you want to tap into, start doing those searches. You know, I searched earlier. I said, okay, Episcopal scholarships, and there are a ton of scholarships out there for students who happen to be Episcopal. So that's just one example. But there's a ton out there. So keep an eye out for things like that. There's also things like the Boy Scouts, the Elks Club, Kiwanis, um, Shriners, you know, those sorts of organizations, the VFW Hall, things like that. Those are really great resources as well. All of those that I just listed do have scholarship programs. So if you have any affiliation or if you have family members with affiliations with any of those groups, definitely tap into those resources and take a look out there. Okay, we're going to move on to state programs. This one's going to get a little bit more, well, a little specific and a little generic. So I happen to know a lot about FAME, which is the Finance Authority of Maine. I know a little bit about VSAC, which is the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. There are a few others that I'm more vaguely familiar with that are out there. But every state, maybe not necessarily the state itself, but a nonprofit associated with the state or an agency that exists in the state. Um, every state has a program out there for higher education, for, you know, undergraduate students, and, you know, some of them are accessible to you, whether you're going to school in your state or you're going to school here in Maine. Some of them are not. I would say most of them, uh, in my searches, most of them, you have to be going to school in state. So if you are in Montana and you want to get the Montana grant, you have to go to Montana State, or you have to go to a school in the state of Montana in order to get that grant program. If you're from Vermont and you are planning to go to school in Maine, you can still get the Vermont State grant if you're eligible for it. And so there are eligibility requirements, but I just point out the Maine State Grant Program and the Vermont State Grant Program. Those are both the amounts right there that students were eligible for. Those are both need-based grant programs, but both FAME and VSAC are awesome resources. Whether you are eligible for the state grant or not, they are awesome resources. So I'm going to do an entire webinar episode. Our episode next month is all about FAME and sort of finding aid in the state of Maine. And so some people may choose not to participate in that one if you're not from Maine. But honestly, there's so many great resources that are available through Fame, and you do not have to be uh, a resident of the state of Maine to tap into some of those resources. So, it's still worthwhile to log in for that one and take a look. But the Finance Authority of Maine and VSAC and so many other state agencies, they're talking to you about savings plans. They're walking through the FAFSA for you. They're helping you with scholarship search tools. They've got resources on how to complete a scholarship essay. They've got their own search engines that are right there on their websites that help you find slightly more specific scholarships that maybe you as a student from your state may be eligible for that other students aren't. So take a look. The others that I'm aware of, the state of Delaware, the state of Maryland, and the District of Columbia. If you are from any of those three places, weirdly all packed together right down there. If you're from any of those three places, the grant, a lot of the grant programs that are available through Delaware, Maryland, and DC are transferable. In Maryland, there's the delegate and senatorial grant programs; those can transfer up to MMA. The DC tuition assistance grant, which is the DC TAG program, that is transferable to MMA. And there's a couple of scholarships through the Delaware Board of Higher Education, and they have scholarships that are transferable if the program is not available in the state of Delaware. So some of our programs are transferable, so you can bring that scholarship with you. Those are just a few. There may be more out there. If you find one that's transferable, let me know, because I would love to have that resource to give out to other students from your state. But even if you don't have a grant program that is transferable from your state, looking at those state programs, finding those state agencies and nonprofits that are doing business in your state out there helping, high school students prepare for college and undergrad students pay for college, find those organizations. They tend to be run by people who really, really care. Fame is a really great example. Those people really, really care about high school students who are looking at, continuing their education, and they do a really, really good job at directing those students to resources. So tap into those state agencies and state nonprofits and find some resources through them as well. All right. So we're going to talk about just a few more things real quick. I wanted to talk about some specific scholarships that are out there. I want to briefly mention some incentive programs, and then we're going to talk about just a few little tips in finding and completing those applications. Um, some specific scholarships that we have seen that I just want to mention, that you can find all of these on our website as well. We've got a whole list of private scholarships with links right on the website. But the SMART program, which is a Department of Defense scholarship program, that's sort of it is a little bit an incentive because you do have to make a commitment to the Department of Defense. But that is a program that covers like all tuition related fees. It doesn't cover food and housing, but it does provide a stipend as well. And that's a really good program. Like I said, you have to make a commitment, but definitely check that one out. The application is actually closed right now for 24-25 because it's only open for a short period of time between August and December. But you don't have to be a graduating high school senior in order to be eligible. So definitely check that one out. That's one that you can apply for every year, I believe. I think you can continue to apply for it if you don't get it in a particular year. Um, I also want to mention the Blue Water Scholarship Fund. They are a great, awesome scholarship organization out there, and they specifically do scholarships for students in the unlimited license programs. So they're going for you're going for your Coast Guard license. Definitely go check out Blue Water Scholarship Fund. They do 2 application windows, so they open up for the fall semester. They haven't opened up yet, so don't stress if you're planning on attending in the fall. Just go check out their website, see what you might need. They have an application window open right now for the summer C term, and those are the 2 cycles that they do. But their application opens back up, I believe, in June for the fall. So they're kind of a late open application, but the whole thing is online now. It's a pretty smooth application process. And the people there are great also. Great resource in general. There's also scholarship programs through the EPA, NOAA, which is the National Oceanic, I don't remember what the other A is, but it's an association. Zach will correct me in 10 seconds, I bet. Um, there's also the Eagle Scouts. That's a really, really big scholarship program that's out there. And there's a ton of others. So go check out our website because we do have a ton of really great resources out there. Um, and then, for students who are from Maine, the big ones that we like to mention are Worthington, MES, and Mitchell. So go check those out. Again, we've got links on our website. You can Google those as well, and go find those scholarships. Those scholarship applications are open right now. And those are really good ones for students from Maine who, graduating from a Maine high school, going to college in Maine. There are also some incentive programs. There is more information about these on the website as well, but I just wanted to quickly go over them. Incentive programs are a little different because those tend to be um, like commitments. So you can make a commitment with the NROTC, the Navy Reserve Officer Training Corps. SSMP is also run by the NROTC, but that's the Strategic Sea Lift Midshipman Program. There's also Coast Guard has a MARGRAB program. You can make a commitment to the National Guard. And here in Maine, if you have a National Guard commitment, they do some tuition assistance. Usually, it's covering the cost of tuition. And all of those programs are generally commitment based. So you are saying, I am going to serve for a certain period of time with these organizations. So I'm going to serve with the NROTC. I'm going to serve with SSMP for a period of time after graduation. Typically, there's a required period of time that you have to participate, and when you make that commitment, if you are otherwise eligible, they start providing incentives. The SSMP program, I think, right now is the kind of the biggest, um, cash incentive if you're eligible for the SSMP program and interested. There's way more information on the website, but that one tends to be, it kind of ramps up. So freshman year, you don't get a ton. Sophomore year, you get a little bit more. By your junior and senior year, you're getting huge incentives to participate in that program. But then there is that commitment after graduation. And I believe it's 2 to 3 years, something like that. You're committing on the back end, and Zach might be able to correct me on that as well. But there's a ton out there. So if you want more information on those programs, again, check out our website. You can send me an email and ask about them. You can also reach out to Kelly Gualtieri. She works on campus here, and she has a lot of information about all of those incentive programs because she's in our regiment. She worked for the Coast Guard, and she's just been in maritime organizations forever. So she's really tapped in on all that stuff, and knows a lot about all of those different programs. So she can definitely answer questions on that as well. And then I just wanted to briefly mention sort of finding and completing applications as like sort of a cap at the end here. I feel like I've been talking a lot, way more than I normally do. But scholarship applications, they're open all year round. We've got applications opening and closing basically every day. Right now, this is kind of a really important time because this is when a lot of scholarship applications start to close for the upcoming year. So you definitely want to jump on this now. It's possible if you're just starting the private scholarship search, you've already missed out on some opportunities because scholarship applications may have closed in December or January. But most applications are opening between September and May. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm probably gonna say it again, but this is like an ongoing process. So you're an incoming freshman, you're looking at private scholarships, great. Keep looking at private scholarships. After you have paid for everything for your freshman year, keep looking because you can still get private scholarships. You can apply them to future academic years, and you should continue doing these searches all throughout your education here. For the next 4 years, you should be planning to do these kinds of searches. And make yourself a calendar, make yourself a search. We try and make it easy for people. We're actually putting together a comprehensive like list and calendar right now, to try and get out there and say, hey, keep an eye out. This is opening, this is closing. But those dates go throughout the whole year. So definitely, keep doing that process, and don't just, you know, take an hour after this. I mean, definitely take an hour and look for private scholarships, but don't just stop there. I mean, if you can set yourself a reminder or set yourself a calendar event and say, all right, this time on this day of the month, I'm going to go look for scholarships and just go apply for a bunch of them. And if you can only do it once a month, you can only do it once a month. And at least if you can be consistent about that, you'll keep up and find new scholarships as they open, grab scholarships before they close, and just keep that up. If you could be looking more often than that, schedule it, especially right now, as things are opening and closing right now pretty rapidly. I would encourage doing that. And parents, families, if you have the opportunity to do those searches for your students, I highly encourage that you do that because it can be really helpful. Um, and then the other big tip that we like to tell students is prepare your essay. So write an essay. Like go look at a few scholarship applications if you haven't already. Get a feel for what they're asking for, because a lot of them are kind of asking for the same thing. You're going to find some themes. They want to know what your aspirations are, what your goals are, how you're going to change the world, what you do with the money, things like that. So kind of get a feel for what they're asking. Find an essay prompt, write your essay if you don't already have one, write your essay, go show it to a few people, ask them to critique it, show it to your parents, show it to a guidance counselor, go show it to your English teacher if they're willing to read it. Get some critiques, make it really, really solid, and then you've got that essay. Then start looking at your private scholarship applications and see how you can take that really good essay and just tweak it a little bit to fit with that application. That's really, some of the good advice I think that is out there that people don't necessarily think about is you don't have to write 20 different essays. You can write one or two really good essays and fit them to your application for your scholarship. Because a lot of times, the better your essay, especially for the scholarships that are requesting an essay, requiring you to complete an essay for the application, the better your essay, the more you're going to shine. And the things that those scholarship organizations are looking for, they they care about, you know, succinct paragraphs, and they care about grammar and things like that, but really they want to know about you. So make it really personal. Make it goal oriented. Talk about what you want to do, what your future is going to look like, what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. Highlight your achievements. So many students and parents that I talk to, they think, well, I don't want to boast, I don't want to brag, that I did this at this age, or I did this, I did really well on this test, or I aced this thing this one time, or I did really good on this sports team, at this one point. Definitely talk about those achievements. You want to talk about the things that you're good at, because those are the things that are going to shine through on those application essays. So prepare your essay and really do a good job making it personal, making it goal oriented, and highlighting your achievements. And then take that essay and tailor it to those applications that you're finding out, you know, wherever you wind up finding them. Another thing I'm going to say, just because this has come up as well, is ChatGPT is out there, AI is out there. Those are really great resources. Um, I would not recommend that you just put a prompt into ChatGPT and take that and give that to a scholarship organization and think that you're going to get that scholarship. I think there are ways to use programs like that. If you want to ask ChatGPT, hey, here's this essay prompt. Give me some tips on how to write out this essay, or give me an outline for this essay. Help me fill in the blanks on this essay. If you want to do something like that, that's fine. I would not recommend that you rely too heavily on those, because a lot of these scholarship organizations have started running your essays through the programs that check to see if the essay was written by AI. So keep an eye out for that. Definitely they're good tools. They're out there. And I think if you can use them correctly, they can be really helpful, but I would not rely on them to write the essay for you at all. Um, anyway, that's all I'll say about that. But meet those deadlines, read the applications really carefully, make sure you're filling everything out you're supposed to, and then create yourself a timeline and just start plugging away, and definitely keep an eye on it, logging in regularly. If you're using those search engines, set yourself a reminder, go in, check those out, and start filling out applications. And feel free to reach out if you've got questions or you run into walls or you don't know what to do. Like, we can help too. So definitely reach out. All right. Feel like I talked a lot. Hopefully there was some good information in there that you pulled out of this. But just for some additional resources, I wanted to throw my contact information up there. Zach's contact information is up there as well. We've got Angela and Jeff, who are here in the financial aid office as well. You may have talked to them. If not, feel free to reach out to us anytime, email, phone, whatever. And then I also included some of the contact information for our billing office. They can be really helpful as we get a little further down the line if you've got questions about how much things cost. I can generally answer those questions. Billing is usually a little better at that, but we usually work together with students. And then if you haven't completed your FAFSA yet, and you're on studentaid.gov and you have questions, I will mention again, you can ask the OWL, who's the virtual assistant at studentaid.gov. I've heard he's not great, but sometimes he can answer questions. And there's a phone number through the website as well if you have any issues there. So thank you very much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. We're going to open it up to questions. We don't have a ton of time. We've got about 15 minutes, so we're going to try and run through some questions here. I did want to mention really quickly, next month, we're going to be talking about, like I said, financial aid in Maine. So we're going to be talking about FAME and their grant program, the scholarships, search engines that they have, loan programs, and other supportive resources that they have available. That's March 13th, same time. So hopefully we'll see you there. And now let's jump into some questions, Zach.
Wait, before you
Wait.
get there, I want to
Okay.
fact check you on a couple of things. All right.
Oh, he's gonna fact check me.
I
Okay.
got to hit you with a couple of things because you threw my name out there like I would know the answer to a lot of this stuff, and I do. So I just want to prove that I'm not a total useless faction of the
Well, I'm gonna take a drink of water and
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So number one, the Smart Scholarship Program is technically an incentive program, but let me reel that in a little bit. If you go for the Smart Scholarship Program and you are lucky enough to get that award, the thing that I want to impress upon people is that if you work for the DoD after graduation, it is as a civilian contractor. You are not enlisting any sort of DoD work as enlisted service. So you can work at a Navy base, but you will be a civilian contractor upon that base. You can work at an Army base, but you will be a civilian contractor upon that base. So it is something I wanted to clarify because the other incentive programs that you mentioned, NROTC, the Marine ROTC unit, the Coast Guard MARGRAD piece, those are all enlisted service functions where you're going career path within those departments, right? So it's a little bit different. And it's a 1-for-1 scholarship for employment opportunity. So if they only sponsor you for 3 years, right? So if you're an incoming freshman this year and you haven't yet applied for the Smart Scholarship and that window is now closed, you can still apply as a sophomore. And if they sponsor you for the following 3 years, you owe them 3 years of employment afterward as a civilian contractor. If you get it for 2 years, you owe them 2 years of contractor work, 1 year, right? So we had one Smart Scholar here so far in Maine Maritime's history. He's a great kid. He's one of our systems engineers, and he's now working. He's originally from Houston, but he's now working as a systems engineer on the Navy base in Newport News, Virginia. And he'll be there for the next 2 years because he received the award as a junior. So pretty impressive. I'm working with another student right now who, as a sophomore, has applied for the following year, and he's actually in his first round of interviews. So I'm really excited about that program. I try to tell everybody about it. Ryan mentioned narrowcasting. That program is only available to students in specific STEM fields. So it really isn't available to a broad spectrum of students. The great thing about Maine Maritime is we are a STEM college. So most of our programs have a foothold within that programming if you want to talk to about it. And one of the things that I was recently talking with a mother about of a future student who actually works down at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in New Hampshire, they work with Smart Scholars all the time, and those kids apparently always floor everyone that they work with. So it's a really prestigious award. The kids that come out of that program are mentored one-on-one through that program. It's a really great opportunity. I can't tout that one enough. The second thing with SSMP, I wanted to mention that recently, the financial incentive for that program recently got doubled. So it used to be $32,000 over the course of your 4-year education. Now it's up to $64,000 for that 4-year education, which is a significant increase as far as student incentives. The stipulation is yes, you are part of the Navy Reserves as part of that. So you're not necessarily going Navy career path, you're in the reserves. But the weekend a month is waived, and the requirement therefore is that you sail on the professional license that you are studying for as a student here. So if you receive your third mate's license on the deck side, or your third assistant engineer's license on the engineering side, the requirement is that you hold your license for a total of 8 years. So you have to renew your license once, and you sail upon that license for 6 years total. Right. So that just to clarify a couple of stipulations there. If you want more information on that, I would suggest reaching out to Lieutenant Nicoliti, who's our SSMP coordinator within the within the NROTC office here on campus. He's fantastic. He works with students and families one-on-one to explain the benefits of these programs. We are, Ryan and I, the lay people when it comes to these student incentive opportunities. I also did put Kelly's information, Kelly Gualtieri, who's the Deputy Commandant and SIP coordinator. I put her information in one of the links. So if you wanted to reach out to Kelly directly and ask some more questions about that, she would happily work with anybody. She's also our former director of admissions. So she knows about all of our programs and is a fantastic resource for students looking at either the SIP programs or the regiment. Third thing I wanted to put out there is looking at your opportunities to apply for scholarships. If you are a senior this year and you have senior privileges, meaning you have study halls where you can go home, or even as a junior who's doing research for their following year and you have study halls where you don't have to actually study for something, or you don't have an excess of work that you're trying to get completed, use that time for your applications. You can go to the guidance office during that time and sit with somebody who will help walk you through the application process. In your guidance counselor's office, you can ask your teachers who are in that room, probably looking at things on YouTube during that time. Like, have them help you. I can't encourage you enough to utilize that time for this purpose because it is so meaningful and it's built into your day already. You might as well use it for something productive. I know I used to go home and take a nap in high school when I had those senior privileges. I was not very motivated to get these scholarship applications in. I regret it. I had a lot of college debt. Please don't be like me. I want to mention about ChatGPT. College admissions are looking at that. College scholarship foundations are looking at that to see if it's a machine-written piece of writing. Ryan and I were actually discussing this not too long ago when we noticed some things that were happening in essays that were very similar across the board. It's pretty easy to tell when a 17-year-old, 18-year-old student hasn't written something. And that doesn't mean that you haven't gone and worked with somebody, but we can tell the effort and the lack of personal detail that's in those. So please don't use that resource to write it for you. Like Ryan mentioned, you can use it to do things like check for grammar, check for spelling, make sure all your tenses line up so you're not talking past tense and future tense and present tense in different successions. Have them help you with construction of the essay. Does it flow properly? Those are great things to use ChatGPT for, but the detail and the personalization has to come from within you. So please don't use that to write the essay for you. And the last thing was NOAA. It's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's okay. It's okay. I have a leg up on that one. I had a family member who worked there for a long time. So it's a great program. I was at a conference in Dallas, Texas last year, the International Science and Engineering Expo, where I actually got to meet with EPA and NOAA representatives, and they were starving for Maritime Academy students to apply for their scholarship programs because they are so in line with a lot of what our mission is. So take a look at those programs. They're really excellent. Some of them require sponsorship, so work with your science teachers or your guidance counselors again for those. But they are excellent, typically 4-year trailing with a good chunk of change that are attached to them. And for those who don't know, I was in the financial aid world for a long time, so I am not speaking out of turn entirely, though I today hopefully passed off the torch to finally be out of financial aid forever. As far as an administrator goes, now
No,
I'm just here to be helpful.
you're never going to be all the way out. Never going to let you.
Never gonna let me go.
No.
Well, I love you too, buddy. So we didn't have a ton of questions tonight, so it's good that Ryan rambled for a little bit, and it's nice that I got to add to and correct him on a couple things. So Heather has asked a FAFSA question, and I want to put it out there because this is a good one. With FAFSA, do both parents need to file or fill out the application if they're filing with taxes jointly this year?
No. So the way that works is both parents' information needs to be included, but only one parent needs to be a contributor. And so that means that, if the student goes in, fills out their portion, and then goes to complete parent information on the FAFSA, they're going to complete information about both of their parents, but only one of them has to be the contributor on the FAFSA form. So it gets sent to the contributing parent. That parent goes in, fills out, confirms the other parent's information, and completes the section, allowing for the transfer of the IRS information. So there shouldn't be a requirement for that other parent to access the FAFSA at all, as long as that parent's information is on there. You should only need one additional contributor in that situation. So, short answer, no. Both parents do not need to fill it out if you file jointly. There may be circumstances where that will change, but I would say for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. So.
And that retrieval tool has been available for a couple years now, but it's working more succinctly now because they're pulling everybody's information straight from our.
It's actually, Zach, now I have to correct you. It's actually not called the retrieval tool anymore.
Oh, okay. That I'm okay with, but it did exist previously.
Completely different. Well, it's not completely different. The basic premise is it's pulling information from the IRS. It used to be optional. It is not optional anymore.
No.
So if you are completing the FAFSA and you have done your taxes, you are required to consent to have your IRS information put over there. If you do not consent, that student will not be eligible for any federal aid. That's basically how they're doing it this year.
All right. So. Well, that's splitting hairs. It's still a retrieval tool from the IRS.
But it's not called.
But now it's a mandate. It's not called that. So I'm happy that you corrected that.
Okay.
I clearly am not up on the new lingo, so that's fine by me. Wendy says the owl was fast and helpful. So you got one fan.
Awesome.
You've converted one. That's
good
excellent.
Job, Aiden, the virtual assistant for studentaid.gov.
Oh man. And it looks like Nessie's going to reach out to you. She set up an appointment to talk with somebody about international student opportunities, so that's great. Cool. Nessie, if you're looking for loan opportunities, one that we've run into a couple of times is Empower. I can't remember some of the other ones from my days, but I know that Empower was one that was good for international loans. I don't know about scholarships. I'm going to leave Ryan and his team to talk.
A lot of those scholarships, the search engines that we mentioned, they also do. Sorry, excuse me. They have a whole section specifically for scholarships for international students. So I think scholarships.com does that for sure. I think bold.org has a whole section just for international students. And I'm sure a lot of the other ones do as well. So check those out.
Take your time, Nessie, but we're looking forward to talking with you about that. Matthew McGee, do you have any specific tips for independent students returning to school since their income will be lost when they start classes? Great question.
That is a great question. So, man, do I have any recommendations or specific tips? All right. So for independent students, if you are, coming to school for the first time, you may have some federal aid eligibility that you wouldn't have had as a dependent student, relying on your parent income. So that will potentially be a plus. If you do show a lot of income currently, so you're an independent student, you've been working, you've been in whatever field you're in, and you have shown income in the past, That is going to, count against you as you start looking for federal aid, um, because if you had income in 2022, then that's the tax return that they're going to be looking at. Um, but I would say there's still plenty of opportunities out there. So there's, we were talking about private scholarships, we're talking about state agencies. Definitely tap into those because there's a lot that are available specifically for independent students. So definitely utilize that in your search terms as you're trying to find aid and resources. Um, but I'd say let's take a look and see what your FAFSA says. There there may be opportunities to make adjustments. So if you've recorded a bunch of income on your FAFSA in a particular year, and now you're not going to be earning that income, there may be avenues that we can look at. For the most part, unfortunately, I don't want this to be the answer, but for the most part, the federal government doesn't qualify um, going to school as a good reason for what's called a professional judgment, which is where we might specifically pull income out of your tax return, essentially, that you've completed on your FAFSA, because you've lost your income. Loss of income due to school apparently is not typically seen as a qualifying reason. Um, but I think looking at your specific situation once your FAFSA comes in, that'll help a lot. So, Matthew, definitely reach back out. If you haven't done your FAFSA already, definitely go do it, and we can take a look at your specific situation. And if you're out there, anybody else who's out there who has a similar situation, that would be definitely something to reach out specifically to us about. We can kind of take a look at that and assess your specific scenario, and kind of give you a little bit more tailored approach, I guess.
Yeah, that's great points all across the board. I'll also throw out there too, maybe speak with your employer before leaving the position and see if maybe they would have a tuition reimbursement program or something that would allow you to take a leave from the position and maybe come back to it at a later date for some sponsorship through the program, or do what Ryan talked about earlier a little bit with the Crowley program, and that's find a company that you want to work with after graduation and see if they'll help you with some scholarship opportunities through the schooling. Those are maybe the two things that I would tag along with his recommendations. But I think reaching out and working individually with a counselor or a financial aid administrator from Ryan's team would probably be the best route so they can help kind of tailor that for your situation specifically. Sean James, can you talk a little bit about Blue Water Scholarship? We love Blue Water here. We would happily talk about this scholarship all the time. Majors that typically get funded, need or merit based, etc. Ryan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one real quick. We got to wrap up soon, but I think this is a great question and now because we do love Blue Water Scholarship a lot. Jamie Cleveland and his whole team over there, they do some really great work. They only provide scholarships to students who are attending one of the um, maritime academies. I won't list them all off, but we're one of them. And they're looking at specifically the unlimited license programs. So that is, I'm going to do this
I'm going to
again,
jump
but
in.
that is,
Marine transportation operations, marine engineering operations, engineering technology, and marine systems engineering 5-year program. Those are 4 programs on our campus that would be eligible for the Blue Water Scholarship Fund.
thank you, Zach. So those 4 programs are considered our unlimited license programs. They also have the regimental requirement. They have the summer cruise or cadet shipping requirements as well as you go through. And so those are the things that Blue Water tries to fund. The question about need or merit based, it's kind of both. So they're not 100% a need-based scholarship. They're not 100% a merit-based scholarship. They kind of look at the whole picture. So if you're a student who maybe doesn't have a ton of financial need, but you're a really great student, you have a really great essay, you have a really good story, and you have specific circumstances that speak to Blue Water or whoever happens to be reading your application, you may be eligible for that scholarship. It tends to go to students who have the most financial need, but sometimes financial need needs different things. So, you may have a student who is a senior in college who doesn't really have financial need, but they've borrowed, $60,000 or more since they've been here. That that qualifies as financial need in the eyes of the Blue Water Scholarship Fund. So they look at things like that a little bit more on a I guess granular level and student by student scenarios and situations. So they just tend to be great people. They don't give a specific amount of money. I think a lot of times, first year students, freshmen, maybe you're getting $500 in a scholarship. But then the amounts kind of vary after that as they start looking at varying levels of need, varying interests, and beyond that, Blue Water is just a great resource because all of the students who develop relationships with Blue Water are then sort of part of that fun little Blue Water family. And all of the people that run the Blue Water Scholarship Fund are really great people who know the industry, came out of the industry, are still tapped into the industry. Really great resources for finding that that place that you want to work, that industry that you're interested in, that company that you want to go ship out on. They probably know somebody who can set you up with the right application or the right HR person to talk to start that conversation. So they're really great for not only the financial part while you're in school, but also sort of the career development part after. And they're a really good family. So I definitely recommend if you're in one of those unlimited license programs, whether you have financial, like specific financial need or not, if you've got a good essay, good story to tell, go fill out that application. It cannot hurt to complete that process. So
Yeah, totally. And just to add one more thing, I know that Jamie and his team come up to our campus at least once, maybe twice a year. Once.
at least once a year, yeah.
Yeah, and they spend a day with all the scholars. They go out on one of the vessels. Ryan usually joins for that. They have a dinner together that's all for specifically those students. So Ryan mentioned it's a really great family. They do a really great job of taking care of the students that they sponsor. So it's a great program for those that are in one of those majors. There's also other specific programs that are sponsoring students that are in those unlimited license tracks. TK Foundation comes up to my brain immediately. But that's kind of what Ryan was talking about is be specific. Those are only for students in those unlimited license programs nationally. There's only 7 schools in the country that offer those programs. So when you're looking broad, send it all out there. But when you're looking narrow, that's a great one if you're in one of those programs to definitely key into. It looks like that kind of wraps up our Q&A for tonight. I know that there weren't a ton. You guys will definitely have more questions as you start diving into some of these scholarship searches. Reach out to us over here at Maine Maritime, myself, Ryan, his team. We are all happy to be a part of the process with you. We'll help wherever we can. I know Ryan and his team and myself, when I was over there and even now, wish that Maine Maritime could give you every cent you need to come to this institution. Ryan
Heck
and
yeah.
I's background comes from a fee-based banking system, and we did not like that very much. Here, we would love to give everyone all the money that we can, and we do that. But unfortunately, it's not going to pay everyone's tuition in full. So we will work with you to help find other people to do that for you. Let us know how we can help. Please reach out and tune in for the next session in 3 weeks, and we'll see you then. But for me, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Zach, honestly, for helping host these things and keeping me straight and uh, just reminding me of the little things that I've forgotten. But thank you, everybody who's participated in all of these episodes. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for hanging out 8 minutes after 8. Um, yeah, feel free to reach out if you've got questions, and we'll see you in 3 weeks. Thanks a lot.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.